What you're about to witness is my coaching response to a client. This client has given me permission to transparently share our working relationship. What you're looking at here is Lucy's email to me, and she has already gone through an adoration of her introduction. This introduction is very important. This is the statement that you can quickly say verbally, like if you're in a networking opportunity. It should also be your introduction on all your socials, on your website, about us, and so forth. So she's been through one or two iterations and she's thought it through and she's sent me an updated one. So she says here, my new 30-second intro. I wanted to get your thoughts. Hi, I'm Lucy, and I'm a life and soul transformation coach, and I work with high capacity women who carry a lot at work, at home, in ministry and business, or in leadership. On the outside, they look like they're handling it, like they have it together, but on the inside, they're exhausted, overwhelmed, or feel like they're losing themselves. I help these women pause, reconnect with God, and rebuild their life from the inside out so they can live and lead without losing their soul. Many women are not burned out because they're weak, but because they've been too strong for too long. Now, this is an absolute upgrade to her initial where she started. I still have my thoughts. So I'm going to now respond to Lucy and you get to hear my thoughts on that. So, Lucy, I want to say, first of all, this is an absolute upgrade, and you have dialed in on the problem in a very poignant way. So, people are going to understand that you know exactly how they're feeling in this moment. Now, I do still have some thoughts on the entire introduction. The problem section is perfect. The transition into why they should work with you, not so much. So here's my first pet peeve. I'm just going to say it up front. You use the word help. I have a problem personally with the word help. In my mind and in real life, help is like if, let's say, you're the surgeon, it's the surgical assistant who hands you the tools. Help is like the executive assistant. You're the boss and they help you get your work done. Help is like the housekeeper. In other words, help assists. They don't direct, they don't guide, they don't diagnose, they don't fix anything. So when you are a coach or a service provider as an expert, you cannot really be in help mode. Help mode is a virtual assistant. Help mode is not who you are. So you should be using words like facilitate, guide, empower, direct. You cannot be using words like help. So I want you to take the word help. You don't help. You are going to be like that doctor. So here's the image that came to my mind as I read your new introduction. And I know this is not you, but this is the image that I got when I read it. You come alongside the sick, the woman who's burnt out. She's laying in the bed exhausted, and you come up beside her and you hold her hand and you sit with her through this terrible experience. That's not what you do. That's not what you should do. As the coach of burnout who understands a problem in its entirety, as you've pointed out, you get it, you know exactly the problem that they're living through. But as the coach who is going to really be impactful on moving, because guess what happens? Even if you give them that mental break, that moment where they can feel better, they're going right back into the chaos. So here is the thing. The guide, the coach, consultant really is not help. You direct, you guide, you facilitate, you empower, and you are sitting on a potential gold mine, Lucy, not just for women. The burnout community is a real space that all high functioning leaders, male and female, live in from time to time. And this service, this offer is potentially extremely powerful. But what someone who's in truly burnout means, they're so exhausted that their ability to think is stalled and they don't negotiate strategically in this moment. They are reacting in ways that may be detrimental to their future. If they do nothing because they're in this stall paralysis mode, they will do nothing, they'll take no action, or things may deteriorate through lack of activity. They may lose opportunities as a result. When a person is in burnout, what they really need is like a safe place to chill, a moment to be cared for by someone who has their back, someone who can take over for a spell if needs be, and give them an opportunity for self-care and an opportunity to remember their why. So let's go back to the doctor experience. Now, instead of being the person who sits by their bedside and hold their hand and say, yeah, I know what you're going through. I'm here for you. No. You're going to be the doctor who comes in and says, what you are in is burnout. This is a real thing. This is my diagnosis. You are actually in burnout. It's not menopause. It's not something else. It is a burnout experience based on what I have seen, what I have heard you say, what I've evaluated. And as your doctor in this moment, you need to be on bed rest. So this could be your retreat opportunity, whatever. But here's the thing. Not only are they now in rest mode, but that rest mode has to also be therapeutic. This therapeutic moment is where they are going to recalibrate. You're going to remind them of their why. You're going to have them look through their workflow. What do they need to eliminate, delegate, hire someone to take over? This is the kind of thing that if they don't deal with it during this rest state, it's truly rest state. It's not, I'm in paralysis and nothing's getting done. No, rest state. So during this period when they're working with you, they step away from the chaos. They evaluate the chaos. They look at their workflow. They look at what they need to get rid of. They remind their why. And then you probably help them, you don't want them to step back into the chaos that caused them to be in this burnout. They need to go back into their environment with some new structure, some new handles. So they're not going back into the chaos, but they're in a position now to begin to control the chaos with elimination, delegation, restructuring of the workflow, maybe some automation. So trust me, Lucy, you are truly sitting on a potential gold mine, but you need to reframe your role in that gold mine. If you're just going to be a help and you sit by them when they're in their absolute pain and you're like, oh, darling, yes, I know the pain and I'll hold your hand. You're not alone in this pain. No. That is not what the high functioning person needs. In that moment, that person they're not thinking, they're unable to think. They need to suspend. They're going to suspend activity. They just can't function. But during that downtime, it's not paralysis. You have them step away metaphorically and potentially literally. Maybe this is where you ramp up the retreat experience, but it's not a retreat to just have a spa day, although having a spa day may be a great idea. It is also a place for them to really sit down and think, how did they get here? What is the thing that is bugging them the most? What activities are they doing that is time consuming, energy sucking, probably has very little leverage to moving their life and their business forward. So this is an amazing goldmine space if you frame it properly and build out the services that truly impact the person who's in this burnout state into a more forward moving state. So here is my thoughts. I'm not telling you need to keep this language, but here's my thoughts on how you could probably, first of all, you want to have a framework. So there's three aspects to this space you're in from my perspective. And the only reason, two things I want to say with regards to Lucy, for those who are watching the over the shoulder version. I know Lucy personally. She is an amazing woman, a pastor's wife, a qualified counselor at her baseline. And on top of it, she's doing this coaching actively. And I've seen her work. So she truly has that heart, that empathy, that ability to help you rethink. I just think from the business perspective, we need to really think through the impact, the transformational impact we want to have and work backwards from that. So burnout is disease. This burnout, you have burnout, the result, and the need. From burnout, we're talking about decision fatigue, emotional depletion, and operational breakdown. On the result side, we're talking about reactivity, poor decisions, stagnation, or silent collapse. That's what happens when they're in burnout. And what they need, this is where you step in, containment, restoration, and structured re-entry with control. This is a premium problem with a premium potential solution, Lucy. So you're not walking with them through the burnout. You really help them stabilize, you guide them to stabilize, restore, and restructure their life so they don't go back into the chaos. So, maybe you're not a coach for overwhelmed women per se. You could say something more like, again, just, I wanted to own the language, so you don't have to use these exact words. But if you said something like, I work with high capacity women who have reached a point where their strength is no longer sustainable and their decision making clarity and emotional stability are compromised. Okay. So, okay, I work with high capacity women who've been carrying everything for so long that their strength is starting to break down, not publicly, but internally where it matters the most. They're still showing up, they're still leading, they're still producing, but their clarity is fading. Their decisions feel heavier, and the pace that they've been sustaining is no longer sustainable. This isn't just exhaustion, it's a point where burnout begins to impact how they think, respond, and lead. I create a space where they can step out of the constant demand, stabilize, and begin to regain control spiritually, emotionally, and practically. From there, we restructure how you live and lead so you don't return to the same patterns that created the burnout in the first place. Burnout isn't a sign of weakness. It is often the result of prolonged strength without restoration, support, or recalibration. That's just my thoughts. I really think you're sitting on a potential gold mine, and I hope you found value in this response, Lucy. It's definitely an up. You definitely have improved. But if you start to stop thinking with the word help, I want you to remove the word help. I want you to see yourself more in that diagnostic, that doctoral stage. You look at your client's situation, you hear, you gather the data, you evaluate from your perspective as the expert, and then you diagnose and you prescribe a treatment. I think if you stay in that role model, in that role in your mind, and not help, it will drastically improve how you think about your business, how you think about the services you offer, and all of the pieces that you put into packing that offer together to build out an amazing package that people are dying to buy into. There we go. All right, Lucy, catch you on the next call.